The nervous system reacts to stress. Muscle strength will change in response to it as well. And we can actually monitor that stress response through the muscle strength response. This is called manual muscle testing. In this video, we're going to cover the science and history of where this modality originated, maybe even debunk some classical myths. So by the end, you'll know how it works, why it works, and why you would want to use it in your daily life to help yourself and those around you. What is muscle testing? Well, simply put, it's applying pressure to measure the resistance. So if we are testing an arm muscle, applying pressure, and as the muscle engages, we can measure how well the muscle can engage. Now, that could be measured in multiple different ways. The movements or the positions of these muscle tests actually originally came from early in the 20th century, which were developed for polio, and were able to watch as polio weakness started to show up and the muscle began to atrophy. They could test the muscle weekly and measure for that weakness as it came on. This became part of the norm for physical therapy world and osteopathy and other modalities to test the strength of muscles in these prime mover positions. Put the arm or the limb in about a half contracted state of the muscle and then test into extension from there to see if the muscle can still hold its contraction. In 1949, Kendall and Kendall, their first book right here, Muscle Testing and Function, became the norm in manual medicine to use the same muscle test across the board. We know these are the prime movers of that movement, so you're targeting the strength of individual muscles at that point. Pretty cool stuff. It was really popular. Now, that's manual muscle testing. That is used across the board. And the old Kendall scale from 0 to 5 would measure the grade of strength that the muscle can perform at. 0 meaning there is absolutely no muscle movement. They can't move the arm at all the way up to a grade 5 where it is obvious a 5 out of 5 is solid, strong. Interesting thing happened in the 1960s. Dr. George Goodhart, a chiropractor, was using the manual muscle testing in his practice, testing muscles, and then adjusting the spinal segment that would innervate that muscle and muscle test again, and of course see the muscle get strong after the adjustment. Well, then Dr. Goodhart had a funny patient. This is the origins of a whole new modality. This patient had a shoulder and neck problem that Dr. Goodhart just couldn't figure out. So he finally worked on him one good time and dug in underneath his armpit here and started to find some little trigger points along the insertion of the serratus anterior muscle. So as he worked along that origin of the muscle and broke up any adhesions, he realized, something's going on here. Then after that work, he retested the serratus anterior muscle and it was strong. Or that patient had a winged scapula where their scapula is just winged out on one side. After strengthening the serratus, the winged scapula was gone. It was able to sit against the rib cage again. That also helped the neck. These other muscles like upper trapezius, levator scapula could calm down as the other muscle, the opposing muscle, got strong. Dr. Goodhart was kind of blown away that he could strengthen the muscle not by adjusting the spine, but actually working on the origin insertion of the muscle. He kept at it with different muscles and then adding some other reflexes. Chapman's neurolymphatic reflexes and Bennett neurovascular reflexes. Now we have lymph, blood flow going to the muscle. And then through his practice, he started seeing some correlations with people that had stomach problems and also their pec clavicular muscle off, or people that had small intestine problem and their quadriceps being weak, or large intestine having some issues and their fascia lata being weak. So he started seeing these correlations between the organs and the muscles, and then using those other reflexes from lymphatic points and vascular points that were already documented to help different organ function, he realized that those same reflexes were helping those muscles. So the organ and muscle connection started to show up. Then adding acupuncture, we started to see that whole theory come into the process. Well, this whole body of knowledge started growing, and Dr. Goodhart claimed the term applied kinesiology. This was in the 1960s. From that point forward, he put a group of 12 guys together. They kept adding to the body of knowledge of applied kinesiology. And Dr. Thie was one of those 12 research chiropractors. Dr. Thie saw the need to spread this information even further and help his patients do their homework correctly. So he started holding many workshops on the weekend to show his patients how to do their homework correctly and rub the points and the reflexes correctly to keep the muscles strong. So he ended up writing the book, Touch for Health, in 1973. And that's why we see it globally today. Now, the reason the manual muscle testing might get a little bit of bad rap is because it did reach the masses, and things tend to get watered down. As that book got released to the public, well, the language was sort of dumbed down a little bit into lay terms, so we didn't have to have such technical language to learn muscle testing. And that spread globally. And then you see a lot of people testing for these little power bands in the mall and all types of things. Well, that's great. It does work. They might not be doing it correctly. So that's why it looks like pseudoscience. So done correctly, the science is that this nervous system controls the muscle, and these multiple reflex systems just get information back to the circuitry to the muscle to help strengthen it. And if we have strong muscles, well, then we feel like everything's working. Our skeleton is moving like it's supposed to. If we don't feel stress, then we must be pretty resilient to that stress. We can build more and more resilience through muscle testing. See, the body is multifaceted. We are structure, we are chemical, we are emotions, and we are a spirit running this meat suit. So we need to address all of those factors. And the cool thing about muscle testing and the body of knowledge of kinesiology is that's a big umbrella that covers the structural component, it covers the biochemical component, and it covers the emotional component. And sometimes we need some coaching on the spiritual component as well. But by testing the nervous system in these different ways, we can check to see in priority for any condition that we may have, where do we start? Is it something structural? Is it something chemical? Is it something emotional? We'll know the priority, and sometimes it's all of the above, and we need to work on all of them, and that's a holistic approach to honoring how the body wants to heal itself. You see this stuff all over the place. That's why people use the muscle testing. Naturopaths, acupuncturists, homeopaths, it's made it into the energy psychology realm. We've talked about this before, the EFT tapping points that all came from applied kinesiology, originally from thought field therapy, which is muscle testing to test for the meridian endpoints. And that's how I use it in practice still today. Personally, I would really love to see this make it more and more into the physical therapy world, because that's a brilliant profession that already looks at a lot of this stuff. But I feel like it's missing the link on how the muscle testing is giving more information than just a simple strength grade 0 to 5. When we look at it this way, we're literally checking the neurology in the moment and then checking circuitry in the moment in the presence of the stress. And when you can balance yourself and get strong in the presence of a stress, then that's what's called resilience. And now you're strong from it and you learn from it instead of it making you weaker. Now, you don't have to be a doctor to use it. If you're going to go into clinical practice and start diagnosing, then you might want to have that credential. But for daily use, I use it every day. I do self-testing. I test with a surrogate arm for somebody else and check with muscle testing. Or I use all the reflex work that came along with the body of knowledge of it. And I ask myself, whenever I have pain or stress, I ask myself this: where's my weakness? You're only as strong as your weakest link. Where is my weakness? And then I'm honoring some principles from acupuncture where I'm looking for my weakness only and not focused on the symptom and trying to subside the symptom. I strengthen my weakness and it naturally subsides the symptom. I also think to myself, what have I been eating? What have I been thinking? Structural, chemical, emotional. I think all those things, what have I been doing? Because if this voice is coming from my body, it's trying to tell me something and I haven't been listening. It's time to listen. Knowing the muscle testing and all the reflex pathways, it's like knowing body language and how to interpret body language in so many different ways. So there's a lot of ways we can use muscle testing. You see in our videos here, we do longer processes where we test lots of muscles in relation to different things and different organ systems, balancing the acupuncture system, the chakra system. We can test for nutritional supplements. We can check for allergies. We check for unconscious emotional reactions. We can check for limiting beliefs. We can check for Why is the back pain still there? What's not processing? What's the weakness of why it's there? And for peak performance, if you've got anything going on, I've got a recent client with a skin issue, eczema. I've got another one with an elbow issue. I've got another one with problems with being assertive. So see, we've got chemical, we've got some structural, we've got some emotional stuff here. This stuff is amazing. It's literally like just another avenue to ask your unconscious mind, what's the deal here? You've seen videos like this one.
Now, once it's doing that, just change the idea in your mind that instead of swinging it like that, it's going to start swinging like this in a different direction.
Oh my
Mentally.
heavens.
Where the pendulum looks magical. That's not necessarily truth. That is simply a muscle test. It's called an idiomotor muscle test. It's so small that you cannot see your arm moving, but your unconscious is given the same answer as if you put your big arm out and someone pushed on it. It's just another way to look at it. It doesn't have to be so mystical, understanding that the information is coming from your nervous system and it's going to respond through muscle function. That's how we read each other from across the room. We can see it in emotional postures. We know when someone has back pain. We know when somebody's grieving, or when somebody's really happy. They're standing different, aren't they? Their muscles are acting different. Body language. So in summary, it's science. It works. It's been around for a long time. All it is testing the nervous system in different ways. When we start adding more and more reflex systems to it and checking for emotional responses, nutritional responses, and structural responses, it turns into functional neurology. Knowledge is power, and we tend to fear what we don't know, and we tend to sometimes believe media because it looks funny and the quacks out there doing it wrong, basically, and giving it a bad name. But the science is that it does work. It's simply testing your nervous system function in the presence of stress and correcting for it with different reflex pathways. What if you were to use it? What would you use it for? Got any ideas? Have you tried it? If you tried it and had some good results, let me know in the comments down below. Want to learn more? We've got a course linked down below. I'll see you in the next video.